than your currency. Splurging millions, buying houses like Monopoly. Fucking 9 to 5, man, the money is a joke to me. Buying cryptocurrency, my money in the privacy.
Hey guys and girls, welcome to this week's episode of the No-BS Birchy podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Birch, and this is a show unraveling the truth to the facade of the 21st century. We're now exiting the matrix and waking up to motherfucking reality. This week, guys, I want to talk about something very important. I actually just had this as a bit of a thought yesterday, and that's why I wanted to get it straight out to you guys while it's fresh in my mind. So I'm just going to freestyle and wing it and talk about a thought that I had. I often talk about, how to buy a property, how to buy 5 properties, understanding about the market, all that sort of stuff. But what I don't talk about all that often is what comes after you've bought all this property, you've got wealth, and how do you sustain it to be able to live life on your terms? I see so many people that, come to me and they might be stuck at 5 properties. They might have a great position of 10 properties and certain things happen, right? And I think it's very important to keep yourself in check and have clarity about your long-term goal and to be able to think about the habits that you're forming to get to where you want to be. I think, a mindset is very important to be able to build a large portfolio. Strategy is very important, but it's actually the daily habits and the beliefs of what you do and the things that you practice that are in order to get you to where you want to be. We can all say we want to lose weight. We can all say we want to be fit. We can all say we want to do whatever. But unless you're actually taking the habits and living the life of that person, you could be lying to yourself. Sometimes the worst thing that I see out there is people actually get to a certain level of success and then they plateau out because they think that they've made it and their ego starts kicking in. And when I was talking to one of my mates, it clicked to me that a few of people that I've realized over the years, right? And I see, I've worked with thousands and thousands, like I've been a part of over 15,000 real estate transactions, however many people that is that I've helped out, it's in the thousands. Some have got 20 properties in a year, some have got 30 properties over 5 years, some have got 10 properties in 10 years. Some people just buy 1 or 2 and then they go off and do their own thing. Things that I've realized is that between the people getting from 1 or 2, or the ones that get stuck or the ones that don't, is their mindset, their belief system, how they carry themselves, how they apply themselves, how they deal with adversity. And ultimately, when you amplify something, you're going to have a big result of something. So if you start off your journey and you're a bit cocky, if you become successful, you're going to probably be a cocky, successful person, right? If you're a humble person or you're a giver or you're a nurturing person, you can multiply that by being more successful financially. And what I've realized over the years is that as I've helped people, some people have been able to, go on and do really great things. And some of them I see them and they might, get to 5 properties and they think they know everything and then they start screwing things up because they start getting cocky, start getting an ego. And I think it's very important to always be true to know, what is the end goal, right? You could get to 5 properties and then start buying nice cars, partying, doing bottle service every night down the back end of the club. But you wouldn't have been successful by doing those things in the first place. So bad habits can form along the way. And I think it's very important to, identify, at each step, what things can help us move forward and push through to the next level. Because people say, was the first property your hardest? Was the 10th property your hardest? Was it the last property you bought the hardest? And I think as I've gone on and built, levels of portfolio, levels of success personally, that there's always been a gatekeeper there. There's always been some sort of hurdle to overcome. There's always been a level of adversity. And then it's how you deal with that adversity and how you overcome it. And most people will only push through that adversity once or twice and then they start going, okay, this is where I'm going to stay. This is my place. I feel a little bit better. This is great. I'm going to stay here. But, pushing through that's how you keep pushing forward and getting, really compounding levels of success. And the reason what made me think about doing today's podcast was I've seen people that have bought, 10 properties for, and what have they done 10 years later? I've seen people have bought 20 properties for, what have they done 10 years later? And I've had a look at some of the portfolios and it's quite interesting, some of the results. I know some portfolios that I got 10 properties for in 2010, for example, and here in 2022, the people still own all of those 10 properties. It's like they've just taken 10 years of their life and they're sitting there with 10 properties and it's like they haven't, used those properties to retire, but at the same time, they've got millions and millions of dollars worth of wealth. Right? If you bought 10 properties for 200 grand that are now worth $1 million each, and these things only owe you 150 grand, you have a very low debt position. You could literally sell off 1 or 2 of these properties, redesign your portfolio and retire today. But some people get stuck on that and they just want to hoard the properties. I've seen people that go and buy 10 properties and then 2 years later they go, okay, this isn't working, I'm not retired yet, then they sell them off. And this is probably the depth of where I want to take this conversation, is I've seen so many people that have done so many things, they've had a great portfolio, but then what they did is they got a little bit greedy and they go, well, I bought it for 250 and now it's worth 350, I'm going to sell the property off. Or they've just been like, okay, that worked, now I'm going to go, I've been to a course and I'm going to go and buy cryptocurrency. So they'll sell off a couple of properties and go buy some cryptocurrencies, and their cryptocurrencies go up, down, sideways, wherever that goes. I've seen people that go to a seminar or go to listen to some person out there talking about granny flats or doing development. So they sell off all their properties and then they have one property that they keep developing. And that's the part which really concerned me, because I'm seeing people that sold their properties 2 years ago, 3 years ago, because they go, okay, we've had a lot of money. And now they've missed out on the biggest boom in history, and they've just missed out on millions of dollars of growth. So at what point do you sell off your properties? At what point do you recalibrate your portfolio? I see people where they go, so I know one person that's like, okay, I'm at 20 properties. Now I think it's important to go and buy blocks of land, build properties, sell them, flip them, become a developer. This person sold off a few properties and now, can't get back into the game because A, the market's gone up, B, their finance won't allow them, and C, it just doesn't work for their position, what they're trying to do. So you need to have strategy behind it. I think crucial, the most important part is having the strategy. So the strategy to accumulate properties, so the consolidation phase, the acquisition phase of acquiring the assets, but then also the consolidation phase. How do you make these assets work for you? And we covered off a few episodes ago about having a solid exit strategy. And, it takes me to my thoughts on my portfolio, because when I first started, I wanted to have 10 properties at 200 grand. They double to 400. I sell off 5 and I pay out the other 5. Five properties unencumbered at $200 a week was $1,000 a week. That's what I wanted going back 20 years ago. Looking at when I got to 10, I was like, this isn't enough. I want to keep pushing. And what has happened over that period of time is that I realized that I've been playing a very long game, right? 20 years is a long game to be doing it. But also, working in a job for 40 years is a long game, and certain things. I started realizing the fruits of my portfolio probably after about 10 years was when I started realizing the fruits. And if I just had 10 properties that gave me $100, it's $1,000 a week as well. So how do you get your $1,000 a week? Do you sell the asset off? Do you keep the asset? What do you do with that asset? For me, I'm looking at it from the longer picture than that. It's like, okay, today I've used those original assets to then go and convert them into, motels and all that. I look at Macca's, right? And I think Macca's still sell the same shitty burger that they sold all this time. We're all got to be honest, the Macca's burger doesn't taste the best. It does sometimes if you're drunk or hungover or something like that, right? But in general, you could probably go get a nicer burger than a Macca's burger. But these guys are so successful because they've got a system, a process in place, and that's their business model. So if you've got something that works as an investor, you need to keep your ego in check, right? Like people say to me, Nathan, why aren't you developing properties? Why don't you become a developer? Well, I'm a lazy investor, right? I acknowledge that. So I don't want to go out there, buy a property, renovate it, build it, sell it, whatever I have to do, subdivide it, sell it off, and then I have no asset again. So my goal is to continue to accumulate and having cash flow properties. So if I look at the strategy that I started off with, I was buying little houses in Western Sydney, then it went to little units in Western Sydney, then it went to regional properties, then it went to Gold Coast, Brisbane, all different other sort of regions of properties. Then I went to land banking. I've got some very large land holdings, and I realized the cash flow wasn't the greatest with those land holdings. Then I started to reproduce them with more cash flowing properties. And then today I'm like, okay, if I want to go and develop on all of my land that I've bought, I need to be strategic. What's the strategy for me to get there? If each property is going to cost me, a couple of $1 million to develop, or $5 million, $10 million to develop, do I either sell the properties to develop them Do I go to the bank and ask them for money? I don't want to go to the bank and ask them for money. So how do I leverage myself in the next part? So I'm like, hang on a second, I need to create massive amounts of cash flow. So the properties that I'm buying today are just purely for the next part of my portfolio. So I will be a developer in probably 5 years' time. And I'm already identifying some of my sites, what I can do with them, and all that sort of stuff. But how do I pay for them? What I'm planning to do is get all the revenue from the motels that I'm buying today and then use the motel revenue to do the construction. And then I'll have the motel revenue plus my developments that I build, which will be cash outright unencumbered. And then I'll have 2 sets of revenue coming through and just continuing the base. But what's crucially important is I see these people that go, okay, I started off buying little properties, right? I bought a townhouse for 150, I bought a house for 150, a house for 200, whatever. And then they go, well, no, that's beneath me now, right? I want to go on and move on to a bigger thing. I want to do development. I want to do this. I want to do that. But reality of it is that what made these people successful is that they had the solid foundation of that strategy that worked. And if you bought a property for 150 and it's gone to 300, 400, $500,000, that is a strategy that's nothing sexy, nothing flash, but very fundamental. Nothing that I do with my investments are very sexy. They're not very flash. I'm not out there saying, hey, look at this, and I've not got the camera coming through doing some really pimp, luxury lifestyle sort of properties. I'm dealing with bread and butter, mums and dads, families, affordable housing, young couples, all that sort of stuff. I'm just providing a service to these people to have a roof over their head. They're rewarding me by giving me cash flow, and I'm using that to go and buy more leverage and more assets via, that cash flow. As I've evolved my portfolio, I'm not dealing with, big luxury Hilton buildings. That's not what my game is when I go to motels. When I'm in the motel space, I'm buying the same tenants that would rent my property would be the same tenants that would probably stay at a Birch hotel group at most of them. And that's not to say that anything bad, like I've got multi-million-dollar houses, right? They're just everyday people. So the same strategy that I applied to buying 1 property or 2 properties or a block of units is the same strategy I'm applying to buying a block of 30 motels, a block of 50 motels, a block of 100 motels, the same revenue, the same modelling. However, there is other levels of elements of risk, which is managing the businesses, dealing with staff, dealing with changeover of sheets and all the day-to-day operations. So it's a very big difference on that front. So my thoughts and feedback to people would be, don't try and buy a motel because it's a very hard game. So if you think that, it's only by the fact that I've got a lot of foundations there that I've been able to add this on, which I don't think 99.9% of people would be able to do because there is so much extra added risk with running a business of a motel as well. But ultimately, the strategy is I'm buying below market value. I've got upside for capital growth. I've got strong cash flow, getting a great asset, the same resource between both the properties. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel here. I'm just trying to scale it into a bigger point. And where I feel people get stuck is that they'll sit there and they'll procrastinate. So I've got people that are at 10 properties but could have been at 40 properties, right? And the reason why they haven't is because they've been trying to reinvent the wheel but not realizing that the wheel that they have works fantastic, right? We've got people that are sitting there saying, okay, I bought 10 properties at 200 grand, they've gone to 400 grand, I've got $2 million worth of equity, growth, whatever. I've got cash flow at 50 grand a year, but I want to be a developer. I want to be, buying commercial properties, and they want to try and do something, but the parameters don't allow them to do it. So then they just procrastinate because they don't want to keep doing what they're doing because they think it's beneath them or they've exceeded that. In 2021, I bought 7 properties. 4 of them were properties that my clients had told me I don't want to buy. So I just bought them for a laugh to say, hey, I just made the money. You could have made it, right? Literally, I just bought it because of that. And the numbers stack up and I made lots of money on them. And I made a video on a couple of these things and showed them off because it's kind of funny. But the reality of it is that, people will have, hurdles. There's a different, as I always say, every level brings a new devil. There's always a gatekeeper at, that level that you're trying to get into. It will come with adversity. You want to keep pushing forward, you're going to be greeted with new challenges, new hurdles to overcome. And that's a part of how you carry yourself from a character perspective. By no means, I talk about all this stuff very easily. I talk about it very simplistic and whatnot. But it hasn't just been a walk in the park like all green lights to the city. There's always been roadwork, so I have to go for a bit of a detour, right? There's certain things that come along the way that you need to overcome. So I guess my point to this whole podcast is, reassess where you're at, right? Don't let your egos get in front of you. Don't sit there and think, okay, I'm too good to be doing this right now. Because I'll tell you, right, I've got hundreds of staff in all of my businesses. If I have to go and take the bin out, I'll take the fucking bin out, right? If I have to be the janitor, I'll be the janitor. If I have to be whoever I have to be, if I have to be the receptionist, I'll be the receptionist. And I think that, just because you've gotten to some point of level of success, you should be, taking yourself out of that and being superior. Same thing applies to my business. The same thing applies to my property investing. If I have to take a trailer load of tiles to a tradie, I don't want to be painting a property. I don't want to do that anymore. I've done it. I know how it works. But because I've got that experience, now I can employ people, and I can know if someone's talking shit to me about a renovation. I can know that if someone's, taking the mickey out of me, whatever. So having all that experience, it brings knowledge and it brings ability to scale that. And, as I said, I'm not going to go out to the property and do the works myself, but if I have to assist in any way that I can, I want to make sure that things are moving forward as much as I can. So as an investor, you should always be looking to evolve. You should always be looking at, pushing yourself to that next level. But just remember that, Macca's didn't become successful because they have the best burger, didn't become successful because they've got the nicest fit out, didn't become successful for many things. They became successful because they had a good process, system and procedure. They had something that worked, and then they scaled that. So as an investor, if you're feeling like you're stuck at 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, or you're thinking, okay, I've done this, now I have to do that. So many people out there, and the questions and comments and the things that I've seen over the last 2 decades, and especially the last decade of running this business, is the difference between the people with a large portfolio. They know what they needed to do, and the world stands aside for the person who knows where they're going. So they had clarity, they had direction, they had focus, and they did whatever it takes to get there. The people that only got half or a quarter of the way there, or got stuck, or had a lot more adversity, the monkey on their shoulder was saying, you're bigger than this. You can do something different now. You can do this, you can do that. And, we're always naturally wanting to evolve. We're wanting to grow. We're wanting to, evolve with our own personal space. So I encourage everybody to do that. But just think about it. Like, I'm in Sydney, right? If I'm 20 minutes away from the city, 30 minutes away from the city. I don't hop in an aeroplane to go from my house to the airport. I hop in the car. It's the right vehicle to get me there. If I wanted to go for a travel to New Zealand, I'm scared of aeroplanes. But anyway, if I wanted to go to New Zealand, I'll have to hop in an aeroplane and a car. I'll have to get in the car to get the airport to New Zealand. So as an investor, you need to really sit there and work out, what's this next leg of my journey going to look like? What options do I have? What vehicles do I need? And how's the roadmap going to look for me to get to where I want to be? Don't sit there and waste 2 years, 5 years, 10 years of your career investing when you're sitting there thinking, procrastinating. There's a lot more things that you could be doing to get to where you want to be. The question I leave everyone with today is, what is your goal moving forward? What are the challenges for your goal? And what can you be doing in order to improve your position? It doesn't necessarily mean going out and buying a property. It doesn't necessarily mean selling a property. I remember on Australia Day last year, it was 12 months ago, I was in the car with one of my mates. We were going to the Central Coast. I was talking to him, and he asked me about some of his rentals. And I said, let's go and review your rentals. And when we were sitting there, we're just on realestate.com. I was like, hang on a second, we can put this rent up by $50, this one up by $60, this one by $40. And this guy was able to push his cash flow position up by about $30,000 a year. That's $600 a week over a portfolio of, I think it was 11 properties that he's got. And, that was just having a bit of conversation, drawing out a strategy, working out what the parameters are, and tweaking his existing position. What that extra $30,000 a year involves for him is that, for him, it's probably 1 day a week that he doesn't have to work. He can work 4 days, not 5 days a week. If it was someone on a lower income, it could have been half a week that it would have covered their wage for. It could be that, if you're trying to buy more properties, or you're trying to service or get yourself further forward, you might be sitting there saying, okay, I can't service for this property. That extra 30 grand a year could get you the other part of the portfolio that you're missing. So utilize what you've got, understand the power of the strategy that what you got. If you sell off a property, that's it. It's the end of the game. You're never going to see capital gains again from that asset because it's disappeared from your portfolio. It's no longer yours. And think about what you can do to keep pushing yourself forward. I've seen so many people that have done so many great things, and I've seen so many people that have had a really fantastic position, but they've done silly decisions and it's cost them in future growth. So don't be the person that sits there and sells all your properties off because you think you've had a lot of profit to be made and then realise that you've lost all the opportunity moving forward. If you need help on a strategy, you can always reach out to my team, 1300 367 925. Email us at admin@B.Invested.com.au. And as a final note, if you have any questions that you wish to have me answer on a podcast for you, flick them through to marketing@B.Invested.com.au. And as always, if you like what we do, give us a like, share us around, and you can catch us every Tuesday on Google, Spotify, Apple Play, and on YouTube. We'll catch up soon. Have a great day. Bye for now.
Like Bilal said, man, we're stuck in the matrix. This my advice, don't care if you take it. The dollar about to die, soon to be hyperinflated. This my 2 cents, don't care if you save it. Joint be decentralized and you will see you've been lied to the whole time, and it's the irony, cause they do the exact opposite. You become a slave to the system, enough your money, all they do is profit. There's no conspiracy theory, you better hear me. Crypto will set you free before the system does. I don't care if you do or you don't, but what I'm saying is the truth to the reason you choke. I never been a failure, excuse my behavior. Keep talking, haters doing me a favor. They all telling lies, I know what they been telling you. I'm the opposite of Donald Trump of Australia. It's amazing, here for the taking. My time is never wasted, just getting wasted. These girls say I'm really breathtaking. I can't help it if I really misbehaving.